I got married 2 months ago and I wanted to start my marriage off strong. So, in our first month of marriage in January last month, we didn't eat out once. No restaurants, no fast foods, nothing, completely groceries. And somehow we still spent way more than we expected. So, I'm Cade. I'm a 22-year-old engineer, newly married, trying to live a more intentional life this year. And I just want to share what I'm learning in real time with the rest of you. And today I want to walk through what mine and my wife's budget looks like, what happened in January of 2026, my history with budgeting, and just kind of the simple system that we use now to understand where our money is going and what we're going to take into this month, February 2026. So, this isn't going to be about like building the perfect budget. It's going to be about building awareness, learning fast, and kind of setting a foundation that we can build on. So, step number one, we kind of wanted to analyze our baseline spending. So I had been using the same budgeting app throughout college, and so this actually made it pretty easy for me. I could just kind of like filter what I wanted to look at, groceries, gas, eating out, drinking, gifts, shopping, miscellaneous, car expenses. Just I could look at all of the money that I had spent in the past 6 months because I felt like that was most accurate. Because the past 6 months is when I really started working a full time job, and it was just the most indicative of what my spending was going to look like in the future. And obviously, we kind of had to pool our money together. I couldn't just go off of my spending. I didn't have, my wife didn't budget as fervently as I did. So we couldn't just look at her historical spending and be able to guess truly what our budget was going to look like whenever we got married. So I just kind of like added $1,000 onto what I had already been spending just to kind of like estimate that. The reason that we did that was just to understand, okay, one, how much money are we making, and then two, how much money are we spending every month, and so that way we can just like start a baseline budget for us to start and work through. So for example, what one of the things that I looked at was how much money I had spent eating out, or dining, and that kind of encompasses a lot of things like coffee shops, fast food, sit down restaurants, and even anytime like I go to a bar and have a few beers or something like that, I count that as well, just under dining. And I was spending like copious amounts, like $500, $600 some months just on eating out alone. And I knew that was something that I really wanted to hammer in on. And I knew that was something I didn't want to start my budget saying, hey, we're going to spend $600 on eating out, because I know it's just an easy expense that we can minimize as much as possible. And so that's why in January 2026, we didn't eat out at all. But we're going to get to that. So the next thing with budgeting is we kind of like wanted to give every dollar a job. And so now that I know the past 6 months, I knew where my money has been going. Now I'm going to start telling it where I want it to go. And so this is like where categories matter. I like splitting things like whether it's fixed or it's variable. So your fixed costs being things like your rent, your car insurance, any loan payments that you may have, phone bill, internet, things like that. And variable expenses are exactly what they sound like, anything that varies from month to month, like your groceries, your gas, your shopping, your travel, things like that. And the key here is you kind of want to be realistic. Like, I didn't want to say, hey, usually spend $500 on groceries. We're gonna get married and we're only gonna spend $500 on groceries. That's obviously not the case. We're getting married. It might even double. You just have to be honest with yourself, and if you don't, you're just gonna set yourself up for failure, and you're gonna spend twice as much as you budgeted for. You're just gonna quit budgeting altogether and say, forget about this. I know because I've done it, and it fails every single time, and I just hate myself and I hate my bank account. So that's what we're trying to avoid this year, something we can actually stick to. And it makes it really easy when you're married and you just have each other. If you're aligning your goals, it makes it really easy to just hold each other accountable, which is what I've really been enjoying. So the third thing is you kind of want to understand your savings rate. You have your expenses based on your budget that we just talked about. You gave every dollar a job, and you know how much money you make, so you can calculate your theoretical savings rate. And that's just money saved divided by your income. And so a good minimum target is obviously like 10%, but for my budget, it honestly looks basically like zero, just because I put 10% in my 401k because I get a really good match from my employer, and I put in 10% so I can get that match. And I also put 10% into my employee stock purchase plan. So that's just another thing. Those are just two things that automatically get taken out of my paycheck. And so that's 20% of my income right there. So I'm pretty comfortable if we don't save anything on top of that. Obviously, I'm still working on building my high yield savings account to be 6 months worth of expenses. So that's another thing that you just need to be honest with yourself about is, do you want to do your percentage savings based on your gross income or based on your take home income? And me personally, I know I'm going to get the 20%. And so I want to focus on now growing my savings rate within my take home income. So the next point I want to make is you kind of just want to track first and optimize later. And basically, what you're doing here is you're just trying to collect the data. And you're trying to say, okay, this is what my habits look like. These are the habits I'm willing to give up. This is where I can kind of compromise a little bit, but or it's like there are some things that I'm just not going to compromise on. Like for example, like I'm going to get protein shakes. I'm going to get higher quality meat. Those are just some things that are going to cost more money, and I'm okay with that. Me and my wife, we love to travel. Like that's not something we're going to sacrifice on. But things like eating out and shopping or entertainment, concerts, things like that, like we're not really crazy about. So we're willing to cut those from our expenses. And so back to that point, January was really eye opening, just especially around food because we didn't eat out. We expected our grocery bill to grow, but we didn't expect was for it to be $1,000, which was absolutely insane for me that we spent $1,000 on groceries for two people. And on one hand, it's really frustrating, but on the other, it's like, okay, we're newly married. We had to buy some weird things that we probably won't have to buy for a while, a lot of seasonings, a lot of home supplies and products, and just food that we won't need to buy for a long time, like that just sits in your cabinet and just things that you need to have in your house, but don't necessarily buy regularly. So, but on the good news, it was still total almost like on a bad month what I used to spend, it was still less than that. Like I said, I would spend $500 to $600 on eating out, and once you add $300 $400 grocery bill on top of that, then you're basically at the $1,000 I was spending just for one person. So I'm actually really proud of the success we've made, but I kind of want to be more strategic now going to our grocery shopping, and we've done a really good job of that in February so far. It's mainly because I'm not the one who does the grocery shopping, it's my wife, and she's so much more diligent about choosing cheaper alternatives than I am because I just like to go to the grocery store, get in and get out. So she's been super helpful on that. And the other thing that we kind of taken away is we want to have separated our groceries and home supplies or commodities. So like before, whenever I was budgeting, I would just put things like toilet paper, dish soap, conditioner, um, things like that. I'd put those under groceries just because, I'd go and I'd buy them at the grocery store. But we're kind of going to work on breaking those out into home supplies just so we can have that more visibility in our budget. So that's also going to help us budget going to the months forward. So one thing I really enjoyed about not eating out in the month of January was one, it forced us to be more creative in the kitchen, and we were able to like spend more time together cooking. And as two young people that are married, it's something that we needed to do, was force ourselves to like learn how to cook better. So that was definitely an enjoyable part of the month. But the other thing was we actually went out to eat with our Sunday school group after church, and we spent $50 at a Mexican restaurant, for some fajitas and some enchiladas, and it just not eating out for an entire month really resensitized us to how insane food prices are for something so basic that you can just make at home. And I think that's going to be the most beneficial part is now whenever we do go out, it'll be really intentional and it won't be uh, like the mindless, hey, we don't have anything to eat tonight. Let's just go out to a restaurant. So that's something that's really helped us, and we're going to take with us moving forward. And so the last thing I want to impress on you that's really helped me and my wife is that throughout the month, we kind of just talk through our budget just at the end of the week, whether it's like Saturday or Sunday, track our progress, see how we're doing, and just see like what the general feeling is around money. Um, so I use my budgeting app, but I also use a Google Sheet just to so I can like manually feel where our money is going. And really what makes it work is just talking with your partner. That's the biggest thing at the end of the day in any marriage. And so obviously, like I said, we're going to focus on minimizing groceries, which he's done a great job of already. We're going to make a separate category for house supplies, and we're going to start trying to focus on paying off my loan, which would free up an extra $270 a month. So that's going to be really helpful. So budgeting in marriage really isn't complicated, but it does require honesty. And when you're honest with yourself and each other, it just gives you something so valuable that you can't replace. And that's just peace and clarity about your future and where you are right now. And so this is our first month of marriage budgeting together. And obviously we're learning as we go. So if you're in your 20s, newly married, or just trying to get a hold of your finances, you're really not behind and you're definitely not alone. I may do another video breaking down our budget as a whole, but I just kind of wanted to talk about January itself and what we've learned in this first month of 2026 and in marriage with money. So